Yes, everybody. Russ, the West Ham Network. Hope you're safe and well. So, again, I'm re-recording this. I apologise because the audio was really crap. So, anyway, the idea of what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be redoing what I was doing this morning. We're basically applying the Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, to the to outgoing players, as suggested by a fan. And so there, let's go through it. Let's start with, we all know about these ones, I've already done it. Let's start with Alphonse Areola. Now, according to reports, with the signing of Jean Garcia to Barcelona, Espanyol are looking at a goalkeeper to be brought into the side. And Areola is one of the names. And so it's someone who is of interest. Now, for me, what's quite interesting when you look at, we've got one senior goalkeeper left. With Fabianski going, obviously, I suppose because Foderingham as well. Foderingham is someone who is also very much in that space. But obviously, I don't assume he's going to be competing for a number one jersey. I would prefer not to see us buy a number two. I prefer to buy someone who's going to be a number one and can compete with Areola. And I can't see any movement of the goalkeepers until after they've brought in the goalkeeper coach, obviously with Javi Valero going out. Then I think you'll see some movement. Areola, I think it's not high up on our agenda, in all honesty. So that's why the Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, is going to give 40%. Now, for these sort of whistle-stop tour of all the players who we could sell, I'm not obviously taking into account where we would like to sell the player and there's no interest in him in terms of other clubs. So something like Mavropanos. I think if a deal coming from Mavropanos, we say yes, but would anyone buy him? That's always the issue. And that's why I say it always takes two to tango. It takes two to transfer as well. In terms of it takes a selling club and a buying club as well. Let's talk about Jean-Clair. Jean-Clair, obviously, we've made that deal permanent now, £32 million from Nice, obligation alone with an obligation to buy if certain criteria were made. The criteria were fucking easy. We had to not go down and he had to play 5 games or something ridiculous like that. So, yeah, hardly surprising that happened. Now, the conspiracy theorists out there would suggest that maybe it was part of a plan to get around MCO, multi-club ownership, with Ineos and Man United and Nice, and they were going to come for a bid with him. I don't think they will. I don't think we will sell him. I'll be honest. He's probably one of the assets who's going to make a decent profit potentially on him. But at the moment, I just think he's, by his own admission, he's been injured all season pretty much and played most of the season with an injury. So, yeah, strange one. But I can't see this one happening. So I'm giving it literally 2 out of 10, 20% for Russy B, 20%. So that's what I'm thinking. Now let's talk about someone who is 90% out of the door. And that is Mr. Nayef Aguerd. Now, for me, we know there's a desire for the player he doesn't want to be here. If let's be believed, obviously, again, always is speculation. 4 clubs have been credited with interest in him. I think Atletico Madrid and Real Sociedad, for me, are the 2 strongest links, particularly in terms of getting some money in the door. We know, obviously, he spent a very successful season at Real Sociedad. He has said he wanted to go to a Champions League-based club, which would remove Real Sociedad from that. However, I don't know how much that is part and parcel of what he wants to do. He wants to obviously enjoy football, and he obviously knows Real Sociedad very well. Atletico Madrid, again, have interest in him. Bayer Leverkusen are looking at it. Obviously, Ten Hag's at Bayer Leverkusen. He was looking at bringing him into Man United as well when he was at Man U. So he obviously has a strong interest in the player from a personal perspective. And I can see that happening. Jonathan Tah moving to Bayern Munich as well. Yeah, no, I get that. I just think more likely La Liga is going to be a destination. Marseille's an interesting one as well, with obviously their pursuit, and I think he's going to sign it today, if not signed already, with CJ Riley. I think for me, that might curtail that. There is an option of him. They might look to do a loan with obligation, but it would have to be an obligation, because I think then we could then sort of bank the money, and that would be in the coffers at the end of the next season. But I think this one it's a shame, because I think he'd actually thrive under Potter, in a Potter setup on that left hand side. But it's not going to be, and I'd rather want players who, if they don't want to be it, thanks to the memory, so to speak. So 90% chance I think he's gone. Emerson's an interesting one. Obviously, the emergence of Ollie Scholes, we're led to believe that he's going to be given an opportunity to stake his sort of first 11 claim in that position. Although we have been linked to a number of players who can also play there, so I don't know where the truth is on that. I'm sure they'll be given opportunities. But obviously, with Crest going, that does leave the door open. I think Emerson's one of those players who's preferably been linked with a move back to Serie A. And ironically, Rome seems a destination, whether it be Lazio or Roma. Obviously, he was a Roma player originally, and if he did turn up and play for Lazio, I believe he's only one of 19 or 20 players who would have played for both clubs, such as the rivalry there. Again, I think with Emerson coming in, I think we need to bring in, obviously, a replacement. Yes, it might be, and I don't necessarily see us going out and spending a lot of money on a first choice left back. I think if anything, we should bring in someone who, I know Wan-Bissaka can cover both, but a Kyle Walker-Peters or someone like that who could do both jobs very well, or a younger player who can develop into that role. Maybe even someone who could play that sort of left back, but also could play left to the back three as well, sort of left wing back left. So like Jaden Oosterveld or something like that as well, who could be a start on that left hand side of the back three, but if need be, could drop into that left wing back and then move. If need be. It's a tricky one. But I think if a decent offer comes in, I think like with Aguerd, I think anything £25 million, I think bite your hand off. I think Emerson, I wouldn't want to put a 10, 15, 10. I don't know. I think of a 60% chance, according to the Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, that he'll be moved on. Let's move into midfield now. Let's talk about Lucas Paqueta. There's no one better than Lucas Paqueta. He's our Brazilian Magnifico. Now, this whole discussion has a massive fucking asterisk on it, because it's all dependent on what happens with Lucas's, obviously, hearing. It's been postponed. I would assume the summer is when we hear about it. But I think there's a high chance we won't see Lucas Paqueta in a West Ham shirt ever again. If that, and that could be whether he's sold, and obviously he's sold if he's found not guilty, or he's found guilty. So we know that Flamengo and had an interest in him. They were looking at bringing him in potentially for the World Cup. That's obviously that bit of the transfer window's been and gone now, so that's not materialised. Man City, they've always had a vested interest in Paqueta. Pep likes him, but whether they have funds available, having splurged quite a lot recently in time for the Club World Cup, but also continuing to do so, rebuilding pretty much the squad, it seems. Woods, Lucas, potentially. De Bruyne gone. If they could pick him up for 30 million quid, I don't know. We won't get our money back on him, that's for sure. But I think there's a high percent. I think for me, preference would be to go back to Brazil for him, if he's found not guilty, of course. He's still a key part of the Brazilian national side, and fans of the Brazilian international side really want him in the squad. So he's not there. It's quite clear he's not there. He's had a poor season, but so has practically every West Ham player this season. I think there's a 70% chance, according to the Russy Rumour rating, the original Rumour rating, that he's not there come the summer, come the beginning of next season. Let's talk about Mohammed Kudus. Now, I couldn't do 99. I could have done 99%, because that's what the chances we've heard of him being likely to be moved out this summer. I think it's a game. It really comes down to a game of bluff now. We know he's got the £85 million release clause coming into effect in July. It seems that the three sort of serious bidders are Arsenal, Chelsea, and Newcastle. We know the Saudi Pro League has doors been shut, and probably even more so with the whole John Duran stuff yesterday. In my opinion, shows what a younger player, if they're looking to develop and make a career, make a name for themselves in the game, mentally maybe the SPL move doesn't work very well. If you're coming to the end of your career like Cristiano Ronaldo or someone like that, or Sadio Mane or people like that, they can have generational wealth going there and sort of retire into the distance of a huge pot of cash. But what we need to be believed, London is his preferred destination. He likes to stay in London, so that would assume Chelsea or Arsenal. God forbid if I say the word Spurs. But with Thomas Frank in charge then, Champions League as well. He'll have a war chest, no doubt, wanting to bring in players. Personally, I think Chelsea is going to be the destination for him. We were linked to a number of their players, like Petrovic and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's them potentially re-looked at when it gets closer to squeaky bum time. Arsenal, he's been spotted in directors' boxes and corporate boxes a couple of games last season. Obviously, there's a Thomas Partey sort of Ghanaian connection there, but maybe they got bigger fish to fry. They're trying to bring in the likes of Benjamin Sesko and people like that. I don't know. I just don't see Newcastle as his destination. I'd love him to go abroad, but it's not going to happen. I think he's going to stay in the Premier League. He's found his league, and I think it's probably going to be Chelsea, in my opinion. Now, I can't do 99% because obviously that's percentage that's been given, but 90% chance he is out of here. Let's talk about Super Tomáš Souček. Now, interesting. I think my view on what's going to happen with him has changed in the last sort of 2 weeks. There were 3 clubs interested in him. Everton, Moyes makes sense. Did you see Moyes in like the Welcome to Wrexham? He was like in the pub. I don't know. I've literally just got to that bit. I went, that's David Moyes. Let's go back and check it. Leeds have been interested in him, and Newcastle as well. I think obviously the likelihood of those 3 would be Everton, but we know that Everton are likely to sanction a move for the money, to bring in someone like Thomas. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's considering how much experience we've left as well, with the 5 players already gone out of contract. I think he's probably, him and Emerson are probably the next oldest. No, Areola's 32, isn't it? And Areola. So in terms of changing the age profile of the squad, I think Souček's someone you keep around the squad. I think he's a model professional. He rub off on the others in terms of his training and work ethic. And I think if you want to get someone on for 20 minutes, you're either trying to tie up a game, or maybe you're trying to bring on some height, or trying to bring on something to. He's got a knack of scoring goals. There's no denying it. He's got a knack. He's one of our top Premier League goal scorers of all time. And I think he's in the top 40 or 50, something like that, even maybe top 30 for goals scored by West Ham players. He's in the, I'm pretty sure he's in the top 50 at least. Nigel's going to show me, actually. He hasn't shown it to me yet. Maybe he's disgusted by the fact he's in there. I don't think he's going anywhere unless a silly bid comes in for him. I think, although he has, for me, probably got one more move and then back to Slavia Prague and then retire. I think that will be his trajectory in terms of his career path. He's still on a long-term deal with us. He signed a long-term deal the other year. That put Vladimir Soufal's nose out of joint, which is why, he was a bit frustrated with that. But I think 40% chance of him going anywhere. Luis Guilherme, can't see him being moved on unless a silly offer comes in. Southampton were interested apparently, but I can't see them spending money on him. They're trying to save money, not unless it's a deal with Tyler dribbling and someone else coming the other way. Can't see it happening. Feyenoord were interested in him, but again, that's gone a bit by the wayside. Could he be used as a make weight in a deal for Yuri Alberto or someone like that in Brazilian Serie A? Possibly, but I can't see it happening. I'm moving on. Not much interest, I think, in him. Guerrero Rodriguez, two sort of clubs on the, there is Real Betis and River Plate. I think for me, it's, we know this is another one of those situations where a player wants to move on. We're happy to move the player on. But if the player, if no one comes in for him, he's staying. It'll probably take around £8 million, I reckon, to bring it. The club, I think, he's a World Cup winning international midfielder. Going back to River Plate, I think seems the most logical. I would say to partner Manuel Lanzini, although reports are he could be going to the MLS, to Austin FC, or something like that, I think they're called. So be interested to see what happens with Manu. But I think if a deal comes in, I must apologise, me rubbing my nose. I've got terrible hay fever at the moment. I'm really sorry. 70% chance he's gone. 70% chance. Andy Irving, again, one of these players, I think, on the list that if a bid comes in for him, he'll go. But whether a bid comes in from him is the next sort of step in that discussion. Blackburn were interested in him in January, looking for a loan deal, which we refused. They may well come back in for a permanent deal, potentially. I think his recent debut in the Scottish full international side might open the doors up to maybe some SPL sides. Maybe some, the likes of Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, people like that. Former Hearts man himself, I think he was. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some interest from there. But again, it's one of those things where you're looking at some of the players who are looking to be brought in. You look at someone like Josh Brownhill. To be honest, Andy Irving would suffice, I think, in that position. A lot more forward thinking as well as a Josh Brownhill. Maybe not the sort of the real terrier box to box, but Andy Irving's a very good player, and he just obviously hasn't been given the right tools. But I mean, the fact is, he's had a few minutes under Potter, not a load to show that he's in his plans, but stranger things have happened at sea. I wouldn't obviously get rid of him until we've got replacements. So he gets Lamar for me, a 50-50. Maxwell Cornet could be randomly the saviour to our season, potentially. Or our close season. Obviously, last year he was on loan last season at Genoa. Patrick Vieira, the manager there, saw him in very high stead. Scored a few goals, got injured, obviously, because it is Maxwell Cornet. We are led to believe that Genoa are looking at re-signing him. Again, slightly confusion whether it's a case of the permanently or loan deal, maybe loan to obligation. I think West Ham would be not wanting a dry loan. It had to be some sort of moisture to the loan in terms of an obligation or indeed a permanent deal. I don't think they'll do a permanent deal, I'll be honest, just because of his injury record. But who knows? Also, we are linked with Morten Freudenberg from Genoa, so maybe there could be a deal there to be done. Potentially the Danish midfielder we were looking at. He's out the door, 90%. 90%. And lastly, I haven't spoken about the likes of James Ward-Prowse because I don't think anyone would be interested in him at the moment. There's been no reported interest. Arapanos, no reported interest. Kilman, no reported interest. Edson Alvarez, no reported interest as such. And I haven't spoken about the loans as well, like Lewis Orford or George Earthy or people like that, because again, that's very much, I think, a conversation to be had at the end of the transfer window when squads are being finalised in terms of development of players. So one person who has been one of the strikers, our only senior striker on the books is Niclas Füllkrug. Now, Juventus have had a long-standing interest in him, which has intensified over the last sort of month or so, in that they want to bring in a striker and they see him as a good value option, particularly when they look at the people like Randall Kolo Muani from PSG and various others. And he could be a alternative. He played the full 90 minutes for Germany the other day, so he can do that, Potter. Also on the cards could be a potential move back to Borussia Dortmund as well, where he was much loved and much adhered over there. Although, unless a decent number comes in terms of value, I can't see him going. As I said, we've only got one senior striker. If we brought in a Lucas Stassin or someone like that, or we still would need Niclas Füllkrug, whether that being off the bench of an impact signing or for a cold Tuesday in Sunderland, for example. He has that ability, and I think he'll have the bit between his teeth next season. He had a very disappointing season last year, injuries and no doubt when he's on the pitch, he's a quality player, but it's getting him on the pitch. So I think there's going to be a hell of a pre-season for him, and he's going to come back and prove his worth, or try and attempt to prove his worth. Whether he's given opportunity for that is another question. But I don't think he's going to be sold. Gets to 30%. And that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for your time, as per usual. Apologies for those who watched it first time, and as Nick on Claret and Booze text me, I don't know. Well, I do know what happened there. The wrong microphone. I did a Windows update, and all of my audio visual stuff's gone through the Swanee. So I do apologise. Anyway, we'll have Hammond Sad Lines with decent audio coming up in a couple of hours' time. And also, we've just finished our own signed shirt raffle for the Pau di Cagno. That was won by John from the US of A, United States of America. And that will be sent out very, very shortly to you, my friend. We've also got our next one, which will start next week, which is for this Mark Noble signed shirt. On the front as well. Very rarely they always get signed in the back, don't they, with numbers. But this is signed, held by the big man, or the little man. He's about the same height as me. Signed by Mark Noble, and that's quite an iconic Noble shirt. We did the famous that picture. So that'll be up for auction next week. We've got some classic great shirts coming up soon. We've got one signed by Billy Bonds as well. But anyway, keep an eye on the channel. And take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Much love. Bye-bye.